You've probably heard of this, read this, or seen this, but I'll bet you will be surprised when I tell you what all three have in common. Did you know that three of the most influential authors of the 20th century were all combat pilots before they wrote? And what might you think if I told you that all three crashed their aircraft within miles of each other in one of the most remote parts of the planet? And would it be even crazier if I told you how, as each hallucinated his way across the desert to safety, each had the vision that became one of the most popular stories of all time? Long before they were famous authors, Frenchman Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, British-Norwegian Roald Dahl, and American Gene Roddenberry were all active combat pilots, flying in harm's way. Saint X had flown dozens of different aircraft, from the La Tête Coeur to the Breguet to the Potée. Roald Dahl learned to fly in a Tiger Moth, graduated to a Gladiator, and ended up in a Hurricane. Gene Roddenberry learned in a T-6, flew captain on a B-17 before he became first officer on a Pan American Connie. And here is where their crashes come in. In 1935, Saint X was attempted a record-setting flight in his Cadron from Paris to Saigon, but in the middle of the night, he crashed here, near the Wadi El Natroun oasis in the Egyptian desert. A couple years later, early in the days of the war, on his first ferry flight in a Gladiator, Dahl crashed here. And as third officer on Pan Am Flight 121, flying aboard the Connie Clipper Eclipse from Karachi to Istanbul in 1947, Roddenberry crashed here near Mayadin, Syria. Look at these locations. They're all so close, but this is all barren land. They were lucky to survive at all. Each was wounded, lost, and scared. Eventually, they were all rescued by wandering Bedouins who led them to safety, but not before they'd each experienced night visions, hallucinations, mirages, and met, there in the open desert, strange characters conjured by their own desperate minds. As Saint X walked across the desert, he met a little prince who guided him to safety. Roald Dahl saw a white horse in a top hat, surrounded by a chorus of ravens, taunting him through the wicked night. Roddenberry witnessed waves of wounded strangers helping each other to safety in an alien landscape. Saint-Exupéry's The Little Prince, the story of a young boy and a fox who lead a lost pilot out of the desert, became the most translated book in history. Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory ends with Charlie flying a glass elevator across London. And Gene Roddenberry went on to create Star Trek, a story of strangers from strange lands working together in an alien landscape, the most influential science fiction story of all time. The lesson for the rest of us is this: even when everything goes down in flames and your crash happens, if there is any ray of light, seize it. It may only be an illusion, but it will be your source of power to light whatever you choose to do next.